Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Multipurpose with Lakshit. Today, I have Martin over here, and it's going to be a special episode again as we are in the Pride Month. So today, I have Martin. Martin is an entrepreneur and a wonderful man. And yes, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure having you. Thank you.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So before starting, that would be great if you can just speak about yourself and what you do. That would be amazing.
Sure. So my name is Martin, and I live in the U.S. I live in New York, and I, like you said, am an entrepreneur. So pursuing a couple different businesses at the moment, and just celebrating Pride Month with my husband.
Okay, wonderful. So yes, that would be great if before we get into the questions, you speak about your story and Amit's story. How did you met and how these things happen?
Sure. Well, so we've been together this December. It'll be 10 years. So we've been together quite a long time. And we met via a mutual friend on Facebook about 10 years ago. And that's kind of how it happened. It was just circumstance, and I think it was fate and destiny, and it was all supposed to happen. So, we've been together ever since, and we got married about a year and a half ago. And so now kind of planning for the future beyond the wedding.
Okay. And how did things take place? Like, how was your parents' response? How was your Amit's parents' response? How things did come out, and how did things work?
I mean, so for me, I was already out to my family and my friends and everybody in my life prior to Amit and I meeting. When Amit and I met each other, he was not out to his family. So it took, I think, about 4 or 5 years into our relationship for him to come out. But, I never had any issues with my friends or my family. And he never had any issues with his friends or his family. Everybody was very accepting and very open. And his family has been very accepting with him coming out and being gay, but also with him having me in his life and being, a non-Hindu and a white person, and all the blaring differences on the surface. It hasn't actually really made a difference. So that's been really great.
Okay. And what kind of commitments does it take to how does you think normal relationship and the being are there any kind of differences being into a normal that both are normal, so being in a relationship with opposite gender and the same gender, are there differences? If yes, what kind of differences are there?
I mean, in my mind, I don't really see too many differences, right? I see them as the same. I see, our marriages as the same. I see our struggles as the same type of struggles. I mean, being a same-sex couple versus a man and woman couple, of course, you're going to have a little bit of a differentiated struggle or differentiated topics that are more important to you or that you have to figure out how to deal with. But I think the baseline of the relationship, like the operating DNA of the relationship, is really the same. And I think that's one thing that if people could just wrap their mind around that we're actually not different, that it's love just in a varied form. I think that would help a lot of people accepting something that they don't understand.
Okay. And how what kind of people they are, everywhere in the world, not everybody accepts your friends. Like, do you have any strangers speaking weird things or making fun, or what kind of people there are who just tell weird things which you don't like?
So I've been on social media for a long time, and I've had an Instagram for a long time, but my Instagram really blew up after our wedding because we were featured like in the New York Times and Vogue India and Brides Today and like Brown Girl Magazine. All these really big media publications wanted to do stories on our wedding just because it was one of the first of its kind in its scale and volume in the South Asian community.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of people that were interested in it. And, that was a little nerve-wracking at first because when you allow yourself to be opened up in that way, then you open yourself up to criticism or cyberbullying or whatever you want to call it, right? So on my social media pages personally, anytime that I post anything, it's always very warm and loving, the response that I get, right? Very supportive and very positive. Anytime any other larger publication posts our wedding, like for instance, a few weeks ago, we had Vogue India post, I think, our third or fourth article with them. It's tough. It's tough to see what people say. It's tough to see what people write, and you can't really put too much stock into it, because if you pay attention to it, it's going to really impact your mood and impact your day. And I just have to remind myself, because I do read the comments, because I want to know what the response is, and I want to know what the general consensus is and how people are feeling and what they're thinking. And if their thinking is based in religion, or if their thinking is based in bigotry or hate or harm, or whatever. So I do read, not all of them, but I read some of the comments, and you have to stay focused on what the goal is. And what the goal is for Amit and I is to just spread awareness and provide education to people who need it, who just don't know, right? And I because I really believe that through education and familiarity, it's gonna just get better. And our goal is not really to make our life better, because our lives are great with each other and with our friend circle and our families, but make it less painful for the next generation that's coming up, and make it less painful for the people that are in the closet now and are scared to come out, or scared to talk about who they really are, or what their goals or aspirations are in life. That's really what our goal is via social media, and having our wedding kind of plastered all over. That's really the point of it all.
Yeah. And as everybody, like, how did your marriage really took place? Like, what kind of rituals did you have? What kind of Hindu rituals were there? What kind of Christian rituals were there? How did this all took place?
What kind of traditions were at the wedding?
Yeah, traditions, and how did this took place? Everything.
So we got engaged in 2016, and then we took about a year and a half to plan the wedding. I was directly smack in the middle of graduate school. And Amit is a physician, so he's in private practice here in the U.S. So he's always busy and building his practice and building his business. So the first stop for us was to hire a full service wedding planner, because we could not have pulled off our wedding without an entire team of people. There was just no way. So we ended up getting recommended to one of the best South Asian wedding planners, in my mind, in the U.S. Her name is Sonal Shah. She's from SJS Events, which is based here in New York. And she kind of assembled the team that did everything, the decorators and the cake and the catering and music and all that kind of stuff. And we really just kind of provided a guidance and said, look, this is what we want. These are the colors that we want. This is the look we want. And so we kind of provided the parameters, and she and her team did everything else. And then as far as the Hindu wedding traditions, we had a Hindu ceremony, and then we also had a Christian ceremony. So the Hindu ceremony wedding traditions, my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law really were like, okay, you need this, you don't need this, you need this. So we had a full Hindu wedding ceremony, with all the prayers and, the 7 walks around the fire and all that kind of stuff. And we had the pundit there who performed the entire ceremony in Gujarati. And then after that, we had my aunt, who is a minister, perform our Christian ceremony. So, our families were really, really intricately involved in helping plan the actual goings on of our religious ceremonies, because, Amit comes from a very traditional Hindu family, and I come from a relatively traditional Christian family. So there were certain things that certain people in our families wanted and needed to see, and that was where we kind of brought them in at.
Okay. And what kind of what kind of relationship advices would you like to give to the people who wants to come out and accept themselves as they are?
I get asked this question a lot, and the thing that I always say is that I preface it with this. I start with whatever I'm about to say with this, is that coming out is a personal journey. It's not a one size fits all. Yeah. It's on your own timeline, and you have to be ready, and you have to be comfortable. You can't have someone else do it for you. And, I also always say is that one of the most harmful things that you could ever do to an LGBTQ plus person, whether they're trans or gay or lesbian or bi, is to out them before they are ready. It's very dangerous emotionally and physically and mentally, all that. But I say that to lead into this, that, where you're sitting now in the closet and afraid to say who you are and be who you are, I've been there, and every other gay person has been there. So we all of us that are out, we all know how you feel, and we understand the fear. We understand the paralyzing fear of being in the closet and trying to be true to who you are.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I always tell people when they ask me this, is that where you are now seems so scary, and where you need to go seems even scarier. It almost seems insurmountable to be able to say the words and tell your family and tell your friends. But once you get to the other side of it, it is the most freeing and most magical and most ethereal feeling you will ever feel in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise whoever, no matter what your circumstances are, on the other side of it, whoever accepts you, and whoever doesn't. But you will find your crew. You will find your family, you will find your friends, you'll find your love, you'll find your light, you'll find it all. But the first step to finding all of that stuff and being happy is you have to be truthful to yourself. And once you're truthful to yourself, you can get through all the other shit that you have to get through.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for that advice. And why do you think people, there are still many people who don't accept that people with same gender can love themselves? So why do you think that mentality still exists in 2020?
From what I see, honestly, it's mainly religion based.
Okay.
People are, whether they're Christian or Muslim or Hindu or whatever, Jewish, whatever, there's some 4 words in the Bible or the Quran or whatever it is that whatever holy book it is that you follow, that they have now interpreted or been told this is not okay. And, in every holy book across every religion, it always says only God can judge. And that's always my response, is that if you're claiming that you follow the Bible or follow the Quran or whatever, and only God can judge you, you are not God, so who are you to judge? And I also think that part of that too is that they just don't understand, right? Like, I'm not trans, so I can advocate and help and have them teach me whatever they need to teach me, but I will never know the actual feeling of what it's like to be trans, just like a straight person will never know what it's like to be a lesbian or gay or bi. Like, a white person will never know what it's like to be an Indian person. Like, an Indian person will never know what it's like to be a Black person. We all have our own individual journeys that are very specific to who we are. And the only thing that we can do is try to educate and be there for each other and help in any way that we can, right? Like, for me, clearly I'm white, and I attempt to use my innate genetic privilege of being born white to help those who need help. Yeah. So in New York, I'm very active in politics and charity and, protesting. And there's been a lot of this stuff that's going on here in the US with the Black Lives Matter movement and racial injustice. And, my husband and I both, and a lot of my white friends and Indian friends and Black friends and Asian friends, were all deeply, deeply entrenched and very involved in all of these things. Racism doesn't affect me, right? In my country, it doesn't affect me because I'm white and I live in the US. So, and I'm a man. So those 3 things make me unaffected in my life. So racism doesn't really affect me. However, I fight every day for equality for my friends and my family who it does affect. So, I think that's all part of it, is that we all have to just collectively be together, and we all have to have each other's backs. And that goes for gays, it goes for Black people, it goes for immigrants, it goes for everything and everyone. Okay.
And what kind of myths do people make about gays, and what could you debunk some of them?
Sure. What's the question? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So what kind of myths do people have about gays, and would you like to debunk them?
What kind of opinions do people have?
No, myths people make. Like,
Oh, myths,
yeah.
myths. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. You know, especially with gay men, there's a lot of stereotypes. I don't really know how it is in India, but for here, you know, gay men are largely viewed as less than. We are not viewed as intelligent. We're not viewed as educated. We're not viewed as being able to be taken seriously or take things seriously. We're viewed as kind of like the entertainment, right? Like in a circus, there's like a, you know, the monkey with the cymbals. That's kind of us. Like, okay, yeah, you're gay, whatever, but make us laugh.
Oh,
And so, you know, I actually did an interview yesterday, and this was one of the things that I was saying on the interview yesterday, that was a personal struggle for myself, was to learn how to take myself seriously, because I, as a gay person, wasn't taken seriously. So I didn't think that I was smart enough to get an education, and I didn't think that I was worthy of an education, and I didn't think that I could be taken seriously if I wanted to sit down at a table and talk about politics and not makeup and hair. You know, um, stereotypes exist for a reason, somewhat. Um, and who's to say that you can't sit down and have a conversation about makeup and hair, but then also talk about the politics that are going on in the country or in the world, or the global issues that are happening. So that was something that was like really difficult for me personally to overcome. And my husband, like I said, who is a physician, who is like one of the most brilliant people I've ever met, he helped me with that. He helped me be taken seriously and advocate for myself to get an education and know for myself that I could do it. And so I think that that's one of them. I think the overlying kind of thing about gay people in the US is that we're just not taken seriously. Like, whatever we stand up for, whatever we're advocating for, we just don't take you seriously, because I feel like the religious zealots and the bigots don't see us as humans yet.
okay.
We're still not deep enough into the gay rights movement in this country to be taken seriously, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, wonderful. Thank you for that, answering the question. How somebody, if all fine, as you said, there are people telling you, make us laugh. So how can somebody, being a gay or lesbian or bisexual or anything, can just leave that behind, and not, like, how can you have a thick skin that don't matter? You, like, whatever people say, you don't care. So how can somebody have that?
Well, so, I mean, for me, I have a very thick skin, right? So, there's very little that bothers me in this world. I mean, if you mess with my family, like, that's it. That's my trigger, right? But, like, I'm in my early 30s, and I grew up in a time that I was clearly different, in a very small town that I was the only one.
Okay.
And I had no other choice but to grow a thick skin. I had no other choice, because it was either grow a thick skin or cry yourself to sleep every night. And I just refused to do that. And that's a choice that I had to make, but it was a survival instinct, because I had no other option, right? And I think gay people, because we have gone through all of the things that we've gone through, whether it's the bullying or the, just all the BS that we have to go through every day, we learn how to digest that stuff, and we learn how to be strong, because we have no other choice. And there's not really anything that, like, I can say as someone who lives in a very gay friendly city in New York, and I'm surrounded by people who are not judgmental and love us for us. And it's got to be difficult for somebody in, let's say, a small village in India that might be watching this or listening to this and saying, like, okay, well, his life is so different from mine, and his life is easy, and that's why he's able to sit here and talk to us about all of these things.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I would say is that even in a small village in India, the things that those little boys or those teenagers who are closeted are feeling, we collectively as gay people have all felt that. And so where they are, the despair and the desperation, like, I've been there, my husband has been there, and you just have to keep going. You just have to keep going until you pop through the other side, and then get your education and meet your friends and, you know, start to love yourself and accept yourself. And then people around you will too.
Yeah, yeah, they will. Yep. Yes. So I think, yeah, that's wonderful. And there are some kind of quick questions I just want to ask you. So,
Sure.
which cuisine do you prefer? The normal food you eat every day, or the Indian food which Amit cooks for you? Which do you love more?
I love Indian food.
Okay. And do you love more? What kind of taste do you love in the Indian food? More the tastiest, the spiciest, or an okay?
I like spicy. Yeah. I prefer spicy over rich, like without the butter, without the cream, without all that stuff, without the oil. I like the spicy stuff.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
And who does the dishes? You, or how dishes things goes on?
Well, so normally what happens is I cook and he does the dishes. That's normally what happens. But if he's cooking, he'll only make Indian food, you know, Gujarati food or whatever. So then I'll do the dishes. We usually alternate that way.
Okay. Um, what has been your major learning being in a relationship, which people tend to say were unusual, kind of, which is not normal in a lot of places in the world. So, what kind of things did you learn, or did you see, or did you experience in the journey of accepting yourself and marrying a man and having a husband? What did you learn from those things?
Well, I mean, I think the journey of accepting yourself is a universal thing across gay, straight, black, white, yellow, whatever, right? I think that is something that everybody in the world has to go through, is accepting yourself, whether you consider yourself fat, or you consider yourself ugly, or you consider yourself, you know, too hairy, or, you know, not tall enough, or whatever it is. So that, I think, is kind of more of a universal journey for everybody around. But you know, when I met my husband, I was out of a really, really, really horrific relationship, maybe for a year. And I had really worked on myself every single day for a year. So I was ready to receive kind of what he was ready to give. And, you know, I think working on yourself constantly is something that's really important. You just have to be in touch and in tune with yourself and love yourself and like yourself and enjoy being with yourself. Like, I enjoy my alone time and I enjoy being with myself. And I think that's something that's super important, but that comes with getting older and knowing yourself. And, you know, I think that's all part of the personal journey, really.
Okay. And what would be a last message you would like to leave for anybody who wants to come out, or any kind of message you'd like to leave over here before ending this up?
I mean, I think it's kind of a prequel, or a sequel to what I was saying earlier, that, you know, if you're in the closet, that's no way to live, and that's no place to live, and that's no method to live. And, you know, you got to decide your own timeline and your own journey. But just no matter if you come out at 5, if you come out at 15, if you come out at 55, if you come out at 85, just know that on the other side of it, there will always be people there with their arms open, ready and willing to love you and accept you, no matter who they are, no matter who you are. No matter if you think you're, you know, gay and trans, or, you know, whatever your identity is. And even if your identity changes from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday, there's always going to be a crew and always going to be a group for you. You're never going to be alone.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for being here.
Of course.
A wonderful session, totally with the different things and different ideas and different things to know. And yes, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.